Anyone can do the hard stuff, it's the impossible that makes a person rise up and succeed. All my life I had secretly dressed as a girl, more than once in a while I guess, but I was always careful to be myself before I was ever caught. Now I faced the dilemma of admitting my secret. My name is Jeff, I stand 5 feet 8 inches tall, with brown hair and eyes, sort of average in build I guess. I had just taken a shower and dressed in jeans and a tee when Mom called me into the small den. Her normally soft blue eyes were gray with anger, her mouth a slash of red instead of her usual bright smile. "I got this in the mail today, Jeff." She handed me the letter. It was from some lawyer, Dad's lawyer. That bastard has divorced me. Without a word he quit his job and moved. Now he wants me to sell the house so he can have the money. At 16 I didn't have much of an idea of what a divorce was all about, but since he left us, it seemed logical to me that we could keep the house, especially since I'm not 18 yet, and that's what I told Mom. "I'll check, but you may be right, Jeff." After that day life became one struggle after another for us, but Mom was told by her lawyer to let him handle it, and he did, essentially by telling my dad to pound sand. That's when she got the threatening letter. Dad wanted me to come live with him. I had no desire to be with Dad in any way, since he tended to be overbearing and liked his drink a bit too much, and he ran off and left Mom and I alone to manage the best we could. The lawyer says he can insist on visitation at his house, Jeff. However, in this state you are old enough to decide for yourself. You have the right to refuse to go, but if you do, I just know he'll make an issue of the house and some of our savings, which I have already transferred out of his reach. Do I have to go? Mom, sadly, nodded her head yes, then. Unless we are willing to have a long court battle, or we can find a way to make him back off and leave us alone. That's when the most ridiculous thought popped into my mind. Of course I dropped it almost at once, yet the same thought kept nagging at me. Dad was not a raving bigot, but he still had a very hard time with minorities, gays, and so on. Because of that, I knew that if I were to show up dressed as a girl, my life expectancy might become quite short. That's why I forgot about suggesting it to Mom. I waited, wondering if I should tell her, scared and ashamed at first, but I did not want to leave Mom and live with my dad. Almost 10 days later, right after dinner when we had settled down, I told her. "Mom, I have an idea on how to make Dad leave us alone." "Oh. I can, well, you know what he thinks of minorities. I could, maybe, dress as a girl and make him ashamed to be seen with me." There, it was out now, and all I could do was wait for her to say something. I expected a different response, but she didn't even look up at me, yet her voice carried across the room like a hurricane. "That would work, of course, considering how much practice you've had. In fact, it's an excellent idea, Jeff." In a few words she told me she knew about my dressing up. "If you do it right, and I mean virtually perfect, then he'll only get mad and send you home, but if you make one mistake, he's liable to try and hurt you. Especially if he's been in the bottle. If you really mean it, together we'll have to spend some time to make you over into the perfect girl." All at once I got that sinking feeling. That my big mouth had opened a door that if I went through it, I might never return from. "Tell me, Jeff, why did you suggest it?" Good question. Why did I like dressing as a girl? It was a lot of things: the taste of the lipstick, the smell of the makeup and perfume, the sensuous feel of the nylons tight against my legs and the tension of the bra as it wrapped around me. That, combined with the feel of the soft material of the dresses, the way my foot arched in the heels, all of it together always made me feel so giddy that I could hardly stand it. The first time I stood in front of the mirror and saw my creation, in the flesh, not in a dream, I thought she was beautiful. That was several years ago, and all of those same sensations still surrounded me every time I got dressed. Never mind, I already know the answer, so why don't you change and let me meet this girl of yours? That way we'll know exactly what we have to do. It would be the first time I knew of that she would see me dressed. I paused before I said, "In the morning, Mom?" She gave her assent and nothing more was said about it. At 5'6", blonde, with a very nice figure, Mom was the ideal of a woman for many men, including me. I wanted to look like she did, but never would, or could. She has blue eyes that twinkled when she was happy, but turned gray and cloudy when she was disturbed or angry. Mom, not Dad, was the person I wanted to be most like, and at age 38, she isn't old at all, and obviously wiser than I gave her credit for. Mom did not say it, but I knew that since I had mentioned it as a possibility, and she agreed, I would have to do my best, even here in the house, with just the two of us. Since I was the one to say it, she now knew that I wanted to dress as a girl, and had no qualms about it either, well, not many anyway, as long as I stayed home that is. Right after breakfast I went to my room, closing the door behind me. This would be my biggest test, since Mom would be critical of every little thing, which I suppose she would have to be if she and I were going to do this to Dad. I had the hair remover but had never used it before. Now was the time, and I coated myself with the foul goo and endured the stinging sensations it gave me. After a shower I pulled on my only pair of panties and stood at the mirror to do my makeup. I wasn't as good as I wanted to be, but okay I guess. Then came the bra and my birdseed breast forms, a waist nipper, pantyhose and then, finally the skirt and blouse. The skirt is tan with pleats, short enough to fall at mid-thigh on me. The blouse was white with a round neck and short sleeves. I stepped into my only shoes, the white heels, added some lipstick then pulled my hair up into a ponytail. I added the clip-on earrings and took one last look in the mirror. It was the best I could do, which wasn't good enough of course. I opened the door to my room slowly, then walked carefully down the hall to the kitchen, stopping for a moment before I went in to see Mom. I saw that she had on her white shorts with a red blouse. "Turn around and let me see Jeff." I did as she told me. I turned around slowly but felt like I was twisting in the wind. "That's very nice, dear." Her eyes locked on me, and like a statue, I stood there, unable and afraid to speak. "Come with me." It was a command, not a request, and I did as she told me. She sat me at her vanity and began to brush out my hair, using barrettes and spray to hold it in place. It took only minutes for her to do what I was unable to do in hours worth of trying. I think that's better, don't you? All I could do was nod my head yes. I sat, looking in the mirror while Mom stood back, not saying a word. Time slowed to a crawl it seemed, then, "I think we should talk about how we are going to make this work, don't you? Then, tell me, have you ever gone out dressed as a girl, other than a holiday I mean?" She was referring to the time I went out on Halloween dressed as a girl. "No," I said, sure of what she was leading up to. "Have you ever considered it?" There was of course, no use lying to her. "Once in a while I guess, why?" "Because after all this time hiding your hobby, and with your father now a serious concern, I thought you might try it, especially now. You look so nice, and after all, going out will become normal for you in a few days anyway." Her face showed concern, those eyes of hers were still bright blue, her mouth still smiling. Neither of which made me eager to leave the safety of the house, or even admit that maybe, just maybe, I could pull it off, this one time, if I was very careful. "I think you should try it, but first I want to know what to call you. Jeff just doesn't seem to work when you look like this." Not only had I exposed myself, all dressed up, she had fixed my hair and now she wants to know the name I called myself. "Can I do this, Mom?" I mean, yes, dear, you can. Now then, tell me your name. "Megan." "Oh, that's a nice name. Now stand over there and let me see all of you." I stood where she pointed, my hands firmly folded in front of myself. Stand up straight and look at me, Megan. Mom made a careful inspection, walking all around me, then got out her tape and began to measure me. If this is going to work, your clothes will have to fit just a bit better, and of course we have to do something to help the hip and bust line, and the waist of course. I endured the measuring, figuring that a few new clothes would be in my future, but no. We have to start at the beginning, and that means hips and boobs with a narrower waist. After that we can see about some better makeup, clothes, and so on. What does that mean, Mom? Why can't I use birdseed like I do now? And I'm pretty skinny in the waist. Yes, that's true, but you are virtually straight up and down, honey, and not many 17-year-old girls are as straight up and down as you are, and you have no buns to speak of, so we'll see what we can do about that first. Mom walked around me one more time, then told me to wait while she got her purse and won for me. When she returned, she gave me a black handbag that had a long strap on it. I put your wallet and lipstick in there. Ready? This was a life dream of mine, and now that it was happening, I was scared all of a sudden. Mom took my arm and led me outside to the car, then she drove us to a small plaza nearby. When your grandmother had breast cancer, this is the shop she came to. I saw the breast forms they made for her, and unless you knew, it would be virtually impossible to tell them from the real thing, so I thought we would see if they could do something for you. But they'll find out I'm a... No, dear. You are a flat-chested girl and that's all, which we are going to correct today. Now come with me. And I went, right behind Mom. The shop smelled of rubber and plastic, paint and old flowers all at once. The woman recognized Mom and smiled at us. Can I help you? Yes, my daughter here is in need of some of your expert help. I'm almost positive that the woman wasn't fooled a bit, because of the way she looked at me, then she confirmed it. If she is a male, then I need to know that, madam. The breast forms we make are different for men. Their chests do not round out as much as ours do, and it requires more work to get the proper effect. I saw Mom nodding her head, then, okay, she is a male, but we would like to keep that to ourselves. Of course, madam. She looked at me and told me to join her in the fitting room. Mom followed us, and within a few minutes I was bare-chested and embarrassed as hell, but the woman ignored everything except my chest. It took her 20 minutes to find the right color combination for my skin tone, then she tried several breast forms against me for size before she settled on what she called an A+. It's really AB, but without the fullness. As she gets older we can fix that, but for now it's perfect on her frame. Then Mom and I watched as she created from scratch a pair of breast forms especially for me. She attached them to my chest with an adhesive, smoothed the seams down, then she and Mom stood back and looked at me. Those are so real looking. I turned and looked in the mirror and saw for myself that I now had two breasts that seemed to grow right out of my own body. You can get dressed now, honey. Mom and the woman went out front while I pulled my clothes back on. That bra is too tight on you now, but for the moment it does make you swell up pretty nicely, Megan. Mom was smiling while I was still in awe at just having the breast forms attached. I was looking down at my new cleavage when Mom told me that I should have some better lingerie for sure. We can go to the mall and get what we need there. Later, without asking me, she turned into the mall parking lot and parked the car. Since we are spending money your father would get anyway, why don't we make a day of it and get your hair and nails done, makeup and some new clothes? Overcome by the way the breast forms looked, I gained a confidence I lacked before and fell into my girl mode, so what was there to say? Of course I would do it. 2 hours later I emerged from the salon, and did not look at all like I did when I went in. My once mouse brown hair now had an auburn tint, done in a soft set perm that left me with curls all across the back with the side framing my open ears and bangs that swept down and back. My nails are now painted a soft red, my makeup done by a pro. Mom was there when I walked out of the salon, her arms filled with bags. One look and she smiled at me. "God, you're gorgeous, Megan." "Thanks, Mom." "What's in the bags?" "A few things for you. Enough to get you started on. We can add to them later, right now I'm hungry." We stopped and had lunch, then Mom and I went to a popular department store, and straight into the lingerie department. I didn't buy any lingerie because we have to measure you again. Plus, I found a padded panty brief that I want you to try on before we go any farther. With Mom pushing me, I went into the changing booth, then stripped to my panties. The padded panty brief gave me hips and a rounded bottom, then Mom measured me for a new bra. "Stay here a minute and I'll get one for you." Within a few minutes Mom was back, handing me a bra to try on. This one fit a lot better and I left it on when I got dressed again. After that, we bought panties, slips, 2 waist nippers in a smaller size, pantyhose, 3 more bras, and then, in the shoe department, several pairs of shoes. We also picked up some more earrings, necklaces, and some bracelets. I think that's enough for one day, don't you? I was so excited that I could hardly speak. Every dream, every single thing I had ever hoped for had come true. "Why don't you drive us home, Megan?" We carried everything to my room and Mom offered to help me, but I told Mom I would arrange things the way I wanted them and she left the room. One look in my dresser told the tale, and I began to empty out the drawers to make way for the new clothes. In my closet I removed clothes I couldn't wear as a girl and hung up the new stuff, put the shoes away and then changed into some jeans and a tee. In the garage I found a small sheet of plywood, cut it to the right size, and made myself a small, ugly, but functional vanity, then carried it to my room and set it in place. Mom came in and gave me an old tablecloth, one of the slick ones, and I used it to cover the plywood. Then I set up a mirror and put my makeup on top of the vanity. I didn't change when I went down to eat dinner, and Mom was quiet all night. In the morning. "I have to go back to work, Megan, but how about dinner out tonight? Get real fancy and we'll have a nice dinner at Fours, down by the riverfront." "Okay, Mom." She left, so I made some coffee and went back to my room. Some of the stuff she had bought I had not seen when she bought them or tried them on yet, so I quickly put on a bra and began to try on everything in my closet. I had 3 skirts and 3 dresses, a suit and 4 blouses. All of the dresses and skirts were just above my knees except for the tan skirt and one of the dresses Mom bought. It was also at mid-thigh on me. The dress was a royal blue sheath with sleeves that were halfway between my shoulder and my elbow and had a low, rounded neckline. Of course, this was the dress I was going to wear. I had all day to get ready, so I started with a bubble bath, another first for me, then used a razor to shave the few stray hairs I found here and there. Out of the tub, I went into Mom's room and used her skin lotion all over myself, from head to toe, and left her room smelling like a field of flowers. Since I still had 5 hours to kill, I spent some time selecting every piece of clothing with great care and set them all on the bed. Then I had lunch. I cleaned up the dishes and went back to my room to finish getting ready. First I shaved as close as possible, and went to the vanity to do my makeup. The new makeup we had bought at the salon was a very close match to my skin color, and as I drew the creamy foundation across my face I began to feel a lot better. The powder set the foundation, and once I brushed away the excess my face looked smooth and matte, not a flaw or trace of my beard anywhere. Then I did my eyes, first with a soft copper color, then with a thin line of plum and over that, gray. The small triangular sponge blended the colors, leaving no line at all, so I picked up the liquid eyeliner and drew a black line on my upper lids from the nose to the outside edge. On my lower lids I used a black pencil to draw the line that finished defining my eyes. On my cheeks I used a soft rose, blended it with the sponge and smiled at my reflection. I was getting good at doing makeup all of a sudden. I sat on the bed and pulled on the pantyhose, then the padded panty brief, which once again rounded out my hips. The waist snipper was one of new ones, and I was unfamiliar with it, but I wrapped it around myself and fastened the hooks and zipped it up, feeling my waist shrink. Normally I had a 28-inch waist, now it was down to 25. The bra I selected was white with lace-trimmed demi-cups with push-up pads in them. As soon as I had it on, I could see that my modest cleavage was a lot more pronounced as the bra caused my breasts to swell against the restraining material. I slipped the dress off the hanger and over my head, letting it slide down to my shoulders, then I zipped it up and looked in the mirror again. I was still shocked at the events of the last few days, but as I looked at myself I knew I had found myself. Going back to being a male was out now of the question, at least in my mind. I stepped into the black heels, opened the small box of jewelry I had, and selected the silvery pearl earrings, slipped them into my earlobes, then fastened the single strand of pearls around my neck. The string of pearls was almost but not quite a choker style and lay on my dress perfectly. The waxy lipstick was also a soft rose color to match my nails, and I used a small brush to draw a Cupid's bow mouth and filled in with the tube. Mom had purchased some perfume for me, so I dabbed some on each wrist and elbow, and at the cleft in my throat. My hair had fallen almost in place, and all that I had to do was brush it a bit and spritz it with hairspray. Finally, I slipped a small ring on each hand and secured the thin silver bracelet chain on my right wrist. I was as ready as I would ever get, and transferred my wallet and lipstick to the new blue purse. I simply couldn't help myself. I stared at the girl in the mirror for a long time before I walked down the stairs and into the family room to wait for Mom to get home. Mom came home shortly after that. I stood when she walked into the room and watched her face break out with a very wide smile. "Damn! You look spectacular, Megan." I did a slow turn and saw that she was still smiling when I faced her again. "I'll just go change. Shouldn't take long." I sat back down and waited. An hour later Mom returned looking absolutely gorgeous. She wore her black sheath dress, the one with the black lace on top with lace sleeves, spiky heels and bright red lipstick. Her hair was pulled away from her face to show off the gold and black earrings. "Ready?" I nodded my head yes, and we left for the restaurant. "I can't believe just how much you've changed in such a short time, Megan. From an average-looking boy to a ravishing young girl." Mom got out the camera and took some pictures, then we left for the restaurant. We walked in together and were seated at a table set for 4. I thought nothing of it since many places do that, then I saw my dad walk in with a woman. "Dad's here." "Yes, I know, dear. Just sit there and be calm." Mom said be calm as if I could actually do it, but the closer Dad came to the table the more I worried what he was going to say, and worse, do. Dad and the woman stood at our table while he made the introductions. "Jean, this is my wife Kelly, and my daughter Megan. This is Jean Benson." They sat at the table and I gave Mom a serious look and got a smile in return. "Megan, your father didn't run away like I told you. That was all a ploy. He has been enrolled in a clinic to dry out and learn how to overcome his anger. Jean is here to meet us and evaluate you." I wasn't sure I knew why, but Dad spoke up and told me. "All your life you have been struggling with yourself, trying to figure out if you are male or female. Obviously, you are a male on the outside, but inside, well, that was open to debate. Your mother and I decided to give you the chance to become Megan. We wanted to see if you would even go out in public, and obviously you will. Jean is here to meet you because we need her advice on a few things that will have an impact on you, and us, and all of our futures." Jean looked at me and smiled while I was busy trying to figure out a way to disappear into the chair without making a scene. "Shall I tell her?" Both of my parents looked at each other, then nodded their heads yes. "Megan, I am an attorney. Your father has hired me to represent you. A great aunt on your father's side of the family has died. She was 105 years old, but she has left an enormous estate. By the terms of the will, you are the only one eligible to collect the estate, and it would be easy except for one small thing. The woman has made several very odd stipulations in her will, which made many of her lawyers think she was crazy, but she insisted, so they included it in her will. If the stipulations are not met, the entire estate will go to a charity. She had my attention, but what did this all have to do with my dressing as a girl? Megan, at the time her will was written, what she proposed was absolutely impossible. Now it's not. We have traced the entire family on your father's side and can find no one that meets the criteria except you. Now I was on the edge of my seat. Megan, before you turn 21 you must bear a child. My mouth dropped open and I couldn't say a word. Her will says, and I quote, "The male heir shall give birth to a live child, as a woman. This male heir, if he can deliver this child, shall inherit my entire estate." Jean locked her eyes on me and smiled. You already have the desire to be a woman, how about becoming a mother? But I'm only 16. Almost 17, and I certainly can't get pregnant, you all know that. Not true, Megan. Jean's voice cut through me like a knife. Just relax and I'll explain the procedure. We will start you on hormones right away. That will let your body develop as a woman would, with breast and hips, smooth skin and so on. When you are 19 you will have a donated egg, fertilized by a male donor, implanted into your abdomen where the egg will grow the placenta, which will gain the blood supply from your own body. The baby will grow to term inside the placenta, then you will give birth by cesarean section. After the baby is born and it is proven that you are indeed a male, you can have the surgery to make you a complete woman. Any questions? Just then the waiter came over and I held my tongue until he had left. But that means that I won't be able to attend my old school. I only like to dress up once in a while. Now you want me to have a baby. I can't do that because... Megan! Mom stopped me in mid-sentence and looked at me. Forget the money for a moment and think about this. You have been dressing up since you were a child, which we always knew about it by the way, so we did some research into boys like you. Virtually all of them wanted to become females, and some of them do just that. Taking you shopping was my test, Megan. If you had balked even once, none of this discussion would not be taking place right now. You put up a fuss for show, but you jumped at the chance to become Megan. You even suggested it to start with. It was clear to us that you have always wanted to be a female and now you have the chance, so don't say that you're not interested, because we all know better. I looked at my dad, who was sitting there watching me with his arms folded. I'm in the clinic to dry out Megan, and I don't plan on going back to my old ways, so don't worry about me. It's up to you alone. I'm your lawyer, Megan. I'm only here to advise you and give you legal advice. Jean was staring at me, so I asked a question. You said there isn't anyone else except me. Does that mean I'm the only male heir? No, dear. In fact, there are a few others, but only 3 are not married. One is mentally unstable and hospitalized, the other is 10 years old. That leaves you, because the boy in the hospital is a ward of the state and they would never agree to this, nor could he survive it. Dinner was served and as we ate I thought about having a baby. All of the work after the birth, plus surgery on myself, and I would be just another young, unmarried girl with a baby. Just how many men would go for that? I looked at Mom, then Dad, and finally at Jean. I knew what I was going to say, of course, and it had nothing at all to do with getting a lot of money. To give birth is the ultimate in being female, and of course, Mom was right. I did want to become a female. The decision was easy after I realized that. Yes, I said, and even though he tried to hide it, I'm sure that I saw Dad sag a bit. Megan, we had to fool you or none of this would have happened. You had to think this was your idea from the start or you never would have let me help you become a girl. Now that you have decided to stay this way, we will get you started on the hormone therapy on Monday. As for school, you will be enrolled at Carson's Academy, which, as you know, is an all-girls school. I felt a lump in my throat as I saw my entire future being decided right then. And so it was. Jean and Dad left, Dad went back to the clinic, and Mom began to teach me how to be a woman. Under her tutelage I learned how to sit, stand, walk, and use my hands, practicing every day until they came naturally to me. We struggled with clothing styles once in a while, but on the whole she let me pick out my clothes. Sometimes she refused to let me out of the house the way I was dressed, like the time I wore those booty shorts that let my buns hang out. She was very clear. That was a solid no. But as the days went on I learned what to wear and when, how to act around males and other women. How to control the men, and how to talk around women. I also lost my fear of using the ladies' room. Day by day I got better, visiting the doctor once a month for a checkup, getting a shot and more pills. I knew what to expect, but it was taking so long that I began to worry. I experienced no changes in my body by the time I started school that fall, but by Christmas I had some small but noticeable breast and hip development. Carson's had classes in poise and manners along with the usual classes, and all of us had to take them. Most of the girls there accepted me as one of them even though I was a bit awkward once in a while. Dad, true to his word, finished his stay at the clinic and stayed dry. Eventually Dad accepted the fact that I was no longer his son. Once, just to piss him off, I went to my room after dinner and changed into a baby doll set that left no doubt about my new shape. My budding breasts pushed against the thin material, and it was virtually as if I was naked. Mom was the one that got angry with me, but my point had been made. Without the constant yelling we all began to bond again and grow closer, especially Dad and I. He got mellow and his work improved so much that as a bonus, he was promoted. By the next summer I had developed fully as a girl my age would be, my skin hairless and smooth, my figure now 36-24-36 without any padding. I had more classes in poise and homemaking, which I found I was good at. I took sewing classes, ballet and dance to make myself limber and learned how to dress for every occasion. When I was 17 I even started to date. I met the brother of a friend at school at a small party, and we hit it off right away. Then he asked me out. It was my first date, and like many girls, I wanted him to like me, so I chose my clothes with great care. When Dad met David for the first time I was worried about what he would say, but both of them were polite. The only restriction was that I had to be home by midnight. He took me to dinner and a show, then later, he parked the car. He pulled me to him and kissed me, and I felt like I was melting. Every emotion and sensation rose up and attacked me as he kept holding me close and kissing me. I'll admit that I wanted to let him touch me in certain places, but did not. After the third time we had gone out, David and I both wanted to spend more time together, but school stopped that, so we only saw each other on the weekends. I was becoming attached to David, and that's when I decided to ask if he could be the donor. I called Jean and she said she would see about it, but for me to not mention it to him. My impending pregnancy would come after I graduated from school, which would be in 2 months. The more I saw David, the more I knew I wanted him to be the father of the child. I wanted to tell him, ask him myself, but my parents and Jean all said no. A week after I graduated, the doctor did the procedure to impregnate me. How Jean managed it I'll never know, but David told me about a lawyer that had called and asked him to be a sperm donor. She would not tell me who the woman is. Megan, I only wish it was you. It took all I had to not tell him he was about to be the father of my child. I wasn't sure what to expect, but it took 3 long months before I started to show, and that's when David asked me if I was pregnant. How could I say no? Then he got mad at me and demanded to know who the father was. He thought that I had done the nasty with someone else, but of course that was impossible. He was angry and I cried a lot, but I managed to keep that secret until I could not stand it anymore. I asked Mom if I could tell him. He's asked me to marry him, Mother, and I want to say yes. How can I not tell him? He is the father, isn't he? She held me tightly in her arms and then gave the okay, so I invited David over that night and told him he was the father of my baby. But we never did it, Megan. Just how can I be the father? Then the light came on. Mom and Dad came in and sat next to me, then Dad told him the entire story, from beginning to end. David just sat there until Dad was all done. Then, this means that Megan is a male just like me. And we are about to have a baby? Yes, David said, Mom, but Megan is not a male like you. She was born a male on the outside, but has always been a girl on the inside where it counts. She had the chance to become that girl and took it, and you fell in love with her. Now either you love her or you don't, but it will not change the facts. You two kids belong together and you know it. You can't get married until the baby is 3 months old, and the tests have been done on Megan to prove she is still a male physically. Then she can have the surgery and you two can get married. He sat there and I wondered what he would do. My faith in him might be broken, or not, and he was the only one that could make the decision. He did not fail me. I guess I can tell my folks that Megan and I are getting married, but we'll have a baby right away. They have always told me they were looking forward to being grandparents, and it looks like they'll get their wish. Do you know what the baby will be? I do, David, but not Megan. She decided to wait and see. His parents, who always liked me anyway, were, by mutual consent, not told that I was a male. We let them assume that David and I had, well, made the baby. His mother and mine started to buy little things for the baby, and as the time grew closer I began to waddle and pee a lot. The baby kicked and squirmed a lot, which made me think it would be a boy, but on the day I delivered, it was a girl. A month later I was examined by a doctor chosen by the lawyers, and it was decreed that I would inherit the estate. David and I got married soon after I had my surgery, and spent a month trying to make more babies. David, myself, and our daughter Gail moved into a new home and settled down, and I had the chance to reflect on how all of this happened to me. From the beginning I knew I wanted to be a woman. The news about my father, then the sham it turned out to be, followed by the stipulations in the will, all were designed to let me become the woman I should have been all along. How could I have ever been so lucky? By the way, I'm pregnant again. A boy this time.